Today we are talking about a film that really felt like it was going to be a franchise, but maybe rested a little bit too much on films like Seven and other copycat serial killers of the time. We're going to talk about Philip Noyce's directing work from 1999, starring Denzel Washington, everyone's favorite dad outside of Tom Hanks, as we talk about The Bone Collector. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. You can follow the show on Twitter and on Instagram. Yep, you know what they're going to say. We do have a Patreon. Check that out for some great content and great deals to tell us what movies we should review in the future. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out that webpage for critics' reviews as well as ours. And we're talking about a movie that actually was a big production when it came out. It sold it hard from 1999, The Bone Collector.
All right, when quadriplegic former forensics expert Lincoln Rhyme has mostly given up on living, he's asked to look into a serial killer in New York City who abducts victims and kills them in strange, sadistic ways, always leaving a trail. So Lincoln teams up with new recruit Amelia Donahue to find the culprit.
There's a lot of things to talk about this background-wise, and I want to get an emphasis like we talk about when we talk about The Matrix was kind of the end of the tech noirs of the 90s. It was like the cachet, the cascade, the end of it.
It was like we've done it, and we've done it well, so we can move on. Does that make sense? Like, you know, it's kind of rare because most of the films, when you have a big hit, everyone else wants to copy it, but The Matrix was one where it was like, we're not going anywhere now.
So we get to like tech noirs, like Strange Days, and all of them. We did Dark City, that. Then the Matrix was kind of like the end of it. This is the whole shebang. Yeah. This is kind of The Bone Collector is kind of the end of it of the mystery murderer, kind of dark noir. To kind of I won't say it started with Seven, but kind of Seven was pushed the envelope to it because we had a lot of James Patterson kind of things like Kiss the Girls. We had. The Gingerbread Man, a lot of those kind of James Patterson.
Alex Cross character, I think, was 2 or 3 films that he did with Morgan Freeman. So.
Yes, these murder mystery components where the detective, almost like he knows who is the culprit before we do. And it's very dark, very foreboding atmosphere. And there's a lot of these. And I think this is the cascading result of that as well, comparing, like, this is fitting for 1999.
Yeah, it was almost like a big theme of the 90s, because I really think the first one where it was like, oh, we can do this and we can make it well and we can make people see it and get a lot of awards, Silence of the Lambs, I think was the one where it was like, that's the one where everyone's getting theirs. And then Seven came out and kind of just remaneuvered that argument of like, we can do it, but we're doing it dark, we're doing it brooding, we're doing it very violent. Yeah. And so that's where you have a lot of this, because it felt like the whole time I was watching this, I kept thinking like, it's like a baby between Seven and Saw, and it was like that bridge that would like get us out of Seven, but then get us into like what we consider to be like the torture films of the early aughts.
Perfect analogy. I think this is a bridge to a lot of what they came from before it and what is going to come afterwards, where we get a little more horrific. Because there's some horrific things in this as well. This is kind of labeled as Denzel Washington's lazy acting, because he's pretty much on the bed the whole time. I remember when I saw the theater, it's like, he's going to stay in that bed the entire time? Surprise.
Yeah. I can't remember if this was my first like real memory of watching Denzel in a movie and thinking like, oh my God, I love this actor. But I remember seeing him in this film and maybe Fallen, and I was like, I want to follow him as like a cop kind of character in everything. And it's also very clearly that we had, Kiss the Girls, we had the Alex Cross character, and it was now obvious that another studio wanted to make a franchise, out of this, because there are, I think it's 14 books in the Lincoln Rhyme series that went from the late 90s into, I think, 2018. So there was very much a potential to have a long-running franchise like the Alex Cross thing.
Another one from kind of started a little bit before Silence of the Lambs. I think check it out. Another one I can kind of link it to is Sea of Love with Al Pacino and Ellen Barkin and Michael Rooker. Of course, Michael Rooker is in this movie too, and he plays. I love when he plays just a jackass. I love it.
I like when he plays
he does a jackass.
Technically a good guy, but he's an ass.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Where it's like he's not, because he plays the villain a lot of the time too. But when he plays the good guy who you just hate anyway. That's also pretty fun because he's able to really ride that line.
Right. At the time, a lot of people, I would think, knew who Angelina Jolie was from Hackers and all this stuff. And I think this invested her stock much higher. I think everybody just put her on the radar for future projects. Obviously, she was carrying other movies before this, but this is before Tomb Raider and all this. This is, I think, this was called a Denzel Washington movie.
Yeah.
And below was Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, because I'm trying to remember, did she do Girl Interrupted before this as well? Or that would have been right around the same time.
Right around the same time.
But you have, the thing that I think is so interesting about her character, Amelia, is that, first of all, he changed the name from the book, which I thought was really odd. In the book, it's Amelia Sachs. And they were concerned that it would sound like sex, which I think is one of the dumbest reasons to change a character name in the history of cinema, especially when there's the knowledge that they went as far as to film a nude scene with her. So it's clear that they didn't mind having sex in the film when it was a naked lady, but they didn't want people to think about it when they said her name.
Okay, there's a whole series of Harry Hole, the detective, where... Yeah, the snowman. Yeah. And the detective, there's a whole bunch of books, and his name is Harry Hole.
Yeah.
And they didn't change it.
No.
But her, we can't,
Sax might be sex.
Right.
But yeah, Angelina Jolie being, I think, again, this was the one where I saw her as, for the first time as an actress that I really recognized. And I was like, oh, she was really good in this. I was really into what she's doing. And she's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Because Denzel's character is bedridden, she's doing most of the action in the film.
This is 2 years after she was in the movie Payback.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
With David Duchovny. We did that movie also. And she didn't give any recognized building. So this is 2 years. Now she's on the cover and the posters, everything. But remember, 2 years in 1997, she did Payback. And she's in the movie.
Wasn't that something God?
Oh, Playing God.
Playing God. You're thinking of the Mel Gibson movie. I was like, was she in Playback?
No, 1997 with David Duchovny playing God.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I honestly, like, again, even in that film, she doesn't have that kind of Duchovny-ness where it's like she doesn't rise above. When I don't think of that movie, I don't think of her. No. Even after seeing it more recently than a lot of her other films.
Right, yeah. And here, I would like, now when you talk about the movie, that Angelina Jolie movie and Denzel Washington.
Yeah. I'd forgotten about most of the people in this film. I forgot Queen Latifah's in it. I forgot Michael Rooker's in it. I think Luis Guzman. I completely blanked out that he was in this movie.
Luis!
And it's kind of fun to see him not playing an idiot, because there's so often that he gets kind of relegated to these kind of dumb characters.
Yeah, usually he's in an Elmer Leonard story.
Yeah. And it's nice to see him playing someone who's smart, witty, funny, but also, like, real. It's just a very unique role for him that he never really got to.
That was a kind of a surprise. Wait, you know how to operate a computer? Aren't you Luis Guzman?
Yeah, this was right about the time that Boogie Nights came out, and he's such a foolish kind of...
In that one too, right.
In that film as well.
Right, and then you got, I think it was Ed
O'Neill.
Ed O'Neill.
Yeah, where I mean, you see him and you just can't think of anything other than love and marriage. So it was interesting to see him playing a good guy again.
But he's not playing a stretch kind of character. He's already exhausted.
Yeah,
right? Ed O'Neill is already exhausted with the police work, and he knows go ahead of time.
Yeah, exactly.
So background, we're talking about this is kind of a bridge kind of a thing of what the Silence of the Lambs kind of really started in the 90s, and then what will eventually come with Saw.
Yeah.
And those kind of murder mysteries, and where it's kind of almost hard to digest.
Yeah, it became more about the gore as it went on, whereas, this is still the time where it's still about the mystery,
There's a lot of components to this, and we talked about Zero Effect, where this is very much like a Sherlock Holmes, because Sherlock Holmes' first case, A Study in Scarlet, was. I hope I'm not revealing a lot for the context of the story, but it's a taxi guy. Yeah. And that was a Study in Scarlet. The first case was a person who operates a carriage.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So in the Zero Effect is an homage to Sherlock Holmes. So it's a lot of things related to a Sherlock Holmes mystery without saying it. But it's a very, smart detective who is not really a consultant, but he irritates the entire police force.
Yeah. Well, it felt to me very much like a kind of an inversion of that Silence of the Lambs Hannibal Lecter-ness, because you do have your smart guy who isn't doing the action, but he's giving the information. This is just a case where we like the smart guy, we like the Denzel Washington character, whereas the Lecter is kind of we like to hate, we like to watch him be bad.
Yes.
There's a nice inversion of that there where they're actually teaming up, working together, but he still can't contribute because he's confined in a lot of ways.
Right, you almost trust him no matter what the actors say in the movie, that he knows what he's doing, even with Angelina's character. Like, I can't do this. I know you can. That's why the profile that fits for you can do this. Some kind of thing.
Yeah, even if and he's very much a character who wants to convince you, even if he's not entirely sure. He's going to convince you that you have the strength to do this, because there's that whole scene where he's trying to tell her to cut off the person's hand, and that's pretty rough. That would be tough to do on my first couple weeks on the job.
Yes. Okay. That's enough background. So up next is our review of The Bone Collector. I haven't seen this since 1999. Thanks for picking it. I haven't watched it since I saw this in the theater. And there's a lot of, I remember there's something about a book, and it's a paperback, and it's an image of a book, and that's the only thing I remember. I forgot how ghastly traumatizing this thing is.
Yeah, I forgot about most of the graphic detail in the film. I was very focused in my head on the mystery, which is funny because I saw this movie right when it hit home video. I remember renting it and seeing it probably a little bit too young, but I was a horror kid, whatever. This is one of my wife's favorite kind of like mystery tales. She puts this movie to fall asleep to because it soothes her. She watches murder mysteries and ghost stories to fall asleep, and she really enjoys this film.
Right. I think for people that were of your guys' age when this came out, have far more attachment to it than
probably.
People.
Yeah. Because it was kind of a standout, and I for some reason it felt like Seven had this aura that like you can't handle Seven. That was the idea back in the late 90s. Was like it's too much to handle for modern viewers. Whereas this film felt like it's not as bad as Seven in terms of intensity, so you can handle it.
No, you got a hand sticking out of the gravel and then in the tracks. I still have a lot of things with it that I think there's a little bit of drawl into it. It's tough too when you Denzel just laying on a bed doing his best acting performance. The whole plot to the reasons is kind of
the motive is a little more loose than I remember. I thought it was a little more brilliant when I'd seen it the first time.
But yeah, the attachment of him being in Seven also.
Oh yeah. And that same year in Alien Resurrection. So
he was an alien.
He suffered quite a bit in a lot of these films, but
suffering is a good word for it.
Yeah.
But yes, I do like the component when we talked about Red Rock West. I do like it when it's a mystery. I do like it, but it gets very archaic at the end, where it's like, oh yeah, we're almost on Science Slams. You guys get all busy here, but the real problem's over here.
Yeah, that's where I noticed the major Silence of the Lambs feel. Like I got the vibes right about there that I was like, oh, I see where we're heading here. And reminding me a bit of when we talked about Red Rock West. Go check out that video. When we talked about that, I criticized again the third act of that film for kind of abandoning some of the really interesting twists and turns that it was going for. And that's how this one kind of felt too, is you get to a certain point in the narrative where you can feel that kind of lull near the end of Act 2, beginning of Act 3, where it's almost like, as a filmmaker, Noyce is like, okay, we got to just insert the ending. We have to just insert it, because it kind of just comes out of nowhere. Like, you don't realize we're at our finale of the film. It's just here now.
Yeah, and if you weren't really, really paying attention, you would not notice this character in the beginning.
Yeah.
At all. It's almost like you have to go back and rewatch. Like, oh yeah, that's because a lot of things of serial killers don't really stand out. They're kind of blend in almost. You never notice them, and that's, I think, the whole theme of the movie is these serial killers can be just a nice, pleasant neighbor next door that you won't even recognize until they start being vicious.
Yeah, well, they can really blend into those surroundings, and I really like something that would be later reused by Fincher in Zodiac, was using different actors to play the killer so that it never really looked like the same guy. Right. That was done here. Actually, Michael Rooker played the killer in a couple of scenes so that they could draw away, like, well, he kind of looks bigger than that, but he's kind of smaller too. Like, we can even on the poster of the film, it's a different guy in the rear view mirror that is featured on the poster, and it's very obviously no one in the movie that they just put in a rear view mirror, so it looks like the driver is staring back at you, and it's like they're really doing their hardest work to get you to not think about who it is.
Right. There's a lot of could it be such and such, even Queen Latifah.
Well, I thought it was funny because I was never thinking, watching the film, any of the times I saw it, I was never thinking that it would be somebody in the narrative, that it would just be like some guy they found, like the ending of Silence of the Lambs.
I think that's where it's most effective.
Yeah.
Right. It's not as somebody we haven't met before.
Yeah. The term that comes to mind is shoehorned. It feels like a shoehorned-in character. And I don't know if this is how the book is actually gone with, but it feels like it's an unnecessary character that's just in the narrative so that when you reveal it, it's a shock,
And it's the reason it's just kind of a stretch for me. It's like, really? You go all of that work just for that?
Yeah. Feels like a lot of work for the fact you were just in this building like a couple weeks ago, and you could have done what you were going to do then, you know?
But hey, it has a great microwave ex machina.
That's true. Chekhov's microwave, if you will. Yes, I love that Chekhov. He always does so many neat things. Right. One thing I wanted to talk about with it, because the show, like, this film came out obviously an attempt at making a franchise, and it would have been a good payday for Denzel because he could just be in his bed a lot.
I'm sure you don't remember. I don't know if because you might be a little too young. It had a big ad campaign.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of advertisement, billboards, and all that stuff because, Denzel and all that. Yeah.
I still have memories of the trailer that actually played in my head because it played in front of a number of movies I wanted to see.
Well, I had a silly misconception because this came out after Fallen that this might have a surreal component to it. And that's kind of like, all right, he's been in Fallen. Maybe we're having something a little bit like this because it's even darker.
Yeah.
Darker like that, yeah. If you do like Bone Collector, you haven't seen Fallen, I recommend it.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to cover Fallen eventually because I keep going back to that one. So the film came out, obviously didn't do well as a franchise, never really pursued. There was a TV show a couple years ago that dropped as a mid-season replacement called Lincoln Rhyme, The Hunt for the Bone Collector, which only made it to one season and then got canceled. And it's like, so we've had 2 attempts now at the Bone Collector. I want to share with you my idea for getting this franchise back up and going. Don't do another version of the Bone Collector. What you do is you do your James Bonding of you recast the entire cast and you just start with the second film, The Coffin Dancer. Because I think if you can get that going, then it's kind of like the 2 Hulk movies where they're like related but not really related.
Sure.
So if you hate the film, you don't have to watch it. If you love it, you can continue on. I think the problem is if they want to make this again, I don't want them to remake The Bone Collector again because it's just one more chance for an audience to be like, yeah, we've seen that.
Yeah, we've seen that, and they already have some preconceived notions of what they're,
Because you have 13 other books. You've got material.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of it. So
Yeah. I agree. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Try something else. There's other books out there.
Yeah.
Or it might be just something that really works fantastic in book that just doesn't.
Yeah. There tends to be, there's a big wave of we have a lone or a team of detectives solving murders. And again, that's the Alec Cross thing. They tried to do that with Tyler Perry a couple years ago, and it just didn't happen again.
I love John Sanford, and they're just not going to transfer very well into film.
Yeah, that's the big thing is sooner or later it's does it work anymore? Like not everything is going to be like a Hannibal where like it seems like almost every iteration of Hannibal they do seems to do pretty well. It just may not always be that way. So
yeah. I love John Sanford, and those are many books to choose from. They tried it for me for television. It just, even the stories I like and I see it in the movie, it just doesn't have the spark.
Yeah, not everything is that. What is that Tom Selleck character where he is in like 30 movies playing that character? I don't remember. Yeah.
So, have you seen The Bone Collector?
Yeah.
Have you been collecting bones?
Don't let us know about that. Maybe just call your local police officer and let them know what you've been doing. But yeah, let us know in the comments section below if there's another literary detective that you would like to see adapted to screen. One that hasn't been done before. There's so many of them out there.
They've tried Lucas Davenport.
Yeah.
I'm still going with John Sanford.
Let us know that down in the comments section below. And thank you guys for watching. We really do appreciate it. Make sure to check out all those links down in the description so you can tell us what to cover next. We're always looking for new patrons to stimulate our minds with their picks and really test the ground.
No, honestly, really, yeah.
So thank you guys once again. You can find all my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
Hey, you can find my show, The St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts.
There's a bone.